So we're back to this layering process, and we're starting layers 4 and maybe even 5, depending on where you are in the painting. In layer 1, we created energy and established our values. In layer 2, we started to play with palette and get an idea about what color we were going to use, what palette, what end of the spectrum we were going to play with. Layer 3, we started to build and complicate and intertwine our shapes a little bit. And this is layer 4 and 5. So I'm looking at the piece and I'm beginning to see what layers need to be, how they need to be intertwined more and how they need to be separated and how we need to find a little more description and definition. So the part that I am thinking initially is I'm going to pull some of these blues down using the surface that I created on layer 3 to pull some of the blue down and think of it as reflecting the sky on the side of a tree. But I don't have to have that many trees referenced. I just need to have these vertical shapes that our brain says are trees. The same thing on this side. I may bounce a little bit of that red across to this side of the tree. And I'm beginning to start to find the water's edge here and separate what's happening. And there's a big shift in the water from here to here. I've got to play with this shift and establish a really good prismatic progression here. So in order to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is see where I'm going, and this looks pretty green and yellow. So I'm going to shift into the reds and violets down here and move us back this way. And that's a good place for me to start. So the first thing I'll do is look at my palette, and I'll take a little bit of this magenta and a little bit of ultramarine blue and some white and put them together so I've got a redded blue. And I'll look at its value and see if it's the right value for this spot of the painting. And go, you know, it looks pretty good for here. It may be wrong for there, but for here it looks pretty good. And when I say it's the right value, that means when I put it down, it's not lighter or darker than its counterpart. It seems to fit into this this value of the painting. So I'm just going to take that without any medium in it, and I'm going to start to change the angle of the brush. So here where the brush is flat and I'm seeing the horizontal movement of the water, I'm beginning to now get larger and get a slight angle so that by the time I get to this rock, I'm able to then change the angle again. So I'm using a knife to do that this time and pulling the paint off the surface that's already there. I'm letting the paint that's already there pull the paint off the knife. So in some cases it's pulling paint off, in other cases it's not, and I'm able to see what's happening underneath. I'm going to look up here and say, well, that's the right value and color, but it's a little too dark. So I'm going to take the same color and add a little more light and probably just a touch more blue. So it makes that transition a little easier. So it's more into that green family, just a touch. And I'll pull that across here and sort of reinforce what's happening. In this case, I'm going to use the edge of the knife to maybe carve some of that out. And that's a really nice little transition of color. It didn't take much for us to get that sense of prismatic progression. It looks pretty good. I would stand back and take a look and say, yeah, it looks pretty good, but I've got a little halo here, so I'll come address that. And now I'm going to change the eye. So I'll take a clean brush, and I may take some white and just imply some water coming through between these two rocks. Cool that off a little bit. And I'm just letting the surface of the paint that's there pull the color off my brush rather than pushing it in like that. So I'm just sort of letting it pull off. And I want to see that I have enough, and that's going to look good. So I need to mix a lot of paint on and do a much fewer set of strokes. So I'm going to take all this paint, take a little more white, and over here I'm going to take just the Dazzling Purple by itself. Throw just a little more magenta into this. Throw a little magenta into that. Squeeze just enough medium out so that this stuff dries. Take a bigger brush now and start to lay in some of these underpaintings that I need to help with this transition. So that's going to be nice there. It's not dark enough to move the eye in that direction, so I'm going to pull some dark in here and let it move the eye back towards this shape. Now, interestingly, this shape goes from big to small, so it's moving the eye this way, and I want the eye to move that way. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to pop a little of this color into the foreground to help with that kinesthetic eye movement. So I'll take some white, some phthalo blue, And just use this to pull some of that across and literally create an arrow that points the eye in that direction. And this is a different layer of the paint, so I'm going to have to get this to dry before I come to the next layer. So I want to make sure that I have everything that I need. It's pretty good. I'll come back with a slightly greener blue, a little more medium. Now, I'm not going to overly mix these colors. Just want to create this eye movement that lets us go this way. That's pretty good. I need to put in some white and make these rocks a little stronger, but I'll do that on the next layer. That would be layer 5. Now I'll come back and make certain that I don't have too much confusion. Those little verticals were confusing my eye. So I'll calm those down. Put a little more of that green yellow in there just to, again, pull it inside that value range that exists there. So this is a real nice progression. I'm happy with this. It's nice.